Hello and welcome into the Unknown America Project. This is Michael Hart of the Heart of America Broadcasting Network. Today, we're talking about stupid America, things going on in the American education system that perhaps you're not aware of, and challenges that our kids are facing these days, in addition to the indoctrination that so many of them experience in our high schools and our colleges. But it's very funny when you look at the world around us today. And you see so many of the people in this country, whether or not it's the millennials or their parents or even their parents, that are completely removed from what is really occurring in the news cycle, whether it's related to President Trump or Obama or previous administrations. In the last several decades in this country, we have had a very big problem with people understanding the world around them. And I have to attribute much of that to the United States education system. So today we're going to take about 15, 20 minutes, which is always, by the way, my goal. And it never works out that way because some of this stuff is so deep, so much. And we don't want to get into too much of the weeds with you, but we do want to share with you some insights that might help people to understand exactly what's happening in America today. Now, like I said, this is part of the Unknown America Project. I am the author of Unknown America, Myths and Little Known Oddities About the Greatest Nation on Earth. And I'm also the host of the Michael Hart Show, which can be heard Monday through Friday at 9 Eastern, 8 Central at the Heart, H-A-R-T, Heart of America Broadcasting Network. So let's just jump right into this. I'm going to try to keep this as tight as I possibly can. But, like I say, sometimes it's very difficult to explain these things in 15 or 20 minutes. And I know everybody on YouTube, we like those 5 or 6 minute videos. We just want to get in, get out. We want to be enraged or laugh or entertained for a few moments and then move on with our lives. So I'm going to ask you to be a little bit patient with us today as we try to get through this as quickly as you possibly can, because we're about to take the 8th grade graduation test from 1931 in West Virginia. And, well, compare and contrast what's being taught in our colleges and high schools today compared to what they were taught back in the day and why that may very well be the case. But first, as is always the case, we have to go a little bit back in history to find out the underpinnings of where the U.S. education system is. It was in the year 1867, obviously post-Civil War. Andrew Johnson is the president of the United States, and he signed an order that created the very first Department of Education. Now, at this point in time, in 1867, Johnson's desire was to have the federal government go state by state by state and district by district to take a look at what the local schools were doing so that we could really begin to impact the curriculum in those schools. Over the course of the next several years, decades, there was a lot of changes to the Department of Education. The federal government was kind of advisory, but pretty much hands off. Then in 1979, Jimmy Carter brings us what is today's modern United States Department of Education with its oversights, its bonuses, its gifting, and its impact on American curriculum in this country today. It's also important to realize that the Reconstruction era during the post-Civil War years, this was the introductory period to the Industrial Revolution. This gives us much of the American manufacturing might here in the United States of America. But then we get a little closer to World War II. Then we get obviously past the war. The veterans are returning home. We have the baby boom, and we have women going into the workforce. And we have a lot of major lifestyle changes which take place at this period in time. Interestingly enough, we begin to see this transition from more or less a manufacturing, exclusively a manufacturing economy, to one that is all of a sudden being very service dependent. So we go from a farming, basically, you say an economy, agricultural, into manufacturing during the Industrial Revolution. Then we come around to World War II, and we become more or less a service economy, which brings us all the way to the year 2019, where although we still have manufacturing, and obviously we still have service, now we have the introduction of the technology sector into the United States economic system. Throughout the course of history, these school curriculums have changed to accommodate the job growth under those various economic systems, or in the case, the changes of industry. Today, you have technology impacting service industries, the apps on our phone that allow us the ease of ordering online and having somebody deliver us a pizza or whatever we need, or an Amazon order. But then there's the technology side of it as well. The thing is, and the founding fathers knew this, and we definitely saw this in later years, as the technology would expand, the labor market would constrict. And the federal government eventually got into the curriculum business, particularly beginning in 1980, as we see full implementation of the Department of Education. Let's also bear in mind this is the same year that Ronald Reagan gets elected, and he is adamantly opposed to a centralized education system in this country and would only hire people to be the Secretary of Education who had a philosophical belief along the same lines as he did, that the rights of the state come first. Interestingly enough, back in the day, individual curriculums were region or state dependent. And we see that in this particular 8th grade exam in West Virginia. It's kind of lengthy. I'm going to get through it as fast as I can, but I want to demonstrate to you how many of the college graduates of today, whether they have a business administration degree or the stereotypical underwater basket weaving, could not graduate from elementary school in West Virginia in 1931. And one of the reasons for that is the National Department of Education has superimposed a curriculum over all schools in this country and made it very much award-based. Now, today, whether we're talking about under Bush, No Child Left Behind, or the Obama administration putting forth the Rise to the Top, Race to the Top programs that they have, where schools are actually benefiting by reaching certain scholastic standards, set forth by the federal government. This has dumbed down the American public significantly as these local school districts vie for this federal money. Over the years, and although there's a little bit of rationale for this, there has been a belief that the federal government has been purposely dumbing down Americans for their own purposes of being able to get certain policy past us, or the creation of law, or whatever the case may be. And although that can be, perhaps a side effect of some of their policies, it's not quite as nefarious as that. What we really see here is kind of a socialistic approach to the education system, to where now in this day and time, everybody wants it immediately. Everybody wants to learn it, get it on, get the punchline. Let me look at my video. I know for a fact, when people go to the Heart of America broadcast network and they maybe start looking around the YouTube channel or even on your Facebook or whatever, and you look down and you see that video is 25 or 30 minutes long, and you move on to the next one because the Bachelorette's coming on, or you got to watch Dancing with the Star, or your beer's gone dry, then you got to just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Interestingly enough, it is this kind of condition today with the American public that has been so in the face and so opposition to the way we were educating our young people back then. People don't have the time frame any longer. They don't have the attention span any longer to pay attention to these longer pieces. I seriously considered breaking this one up, but then I thought I don't want to break the test all up into 2 segments. So we're going to jump right into it. But I want to show you how far we have transitioned from the 1930s and even previously to that to the year 2019, and the things that our young people were taught, which were geographically specific, industry specific to the communities that they live, and they taught them critical thinking skills. Can you imagine a millennial today or a Gen Xer sitting down and leafing through the pages of Tolstoy's War and Peace, or Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, or Atlas Shrugged? These things are over 1,000 pages long. We can't hardly keep their attention in a classroom any longer. So imagine going through this again in West Virginia. You don't really have time to get a pen and paper out. Maybe we'll do a future edition of this program. We'll slow it down for you just a little bit and have some fun with it. But let's break right into this thing and show you exactly what we were teaching young people today versus what we were teaching them back in the day. And I have the actual physical screenshots, so I'm going to read them straight from the test. Number 1, under the test for geography, in 1 or 2 paragraphs each, Discuss the major and minor industries of your county and explain how the climate, natural regions, and natural resources have influenced their development. You see, we're teaching our young kids at this period of time how to succeed, how to thrive, and how to survive in their local communities. Tell me what your major industry is. Number two, name one country other than the United States that produces as much wheat, cattle, cotton, coal, sugar, coffee, gold, and oranges. Number three, the United States is the wealthiest and one of the most influential countries of the world. What are some of the reasons for its wonderful growth in its 155 years of existence? Now, remember, we are in 1930s. What causes rain? Why do deserts have little rain? Next, name the 5 cities of West Virginia with the reasons for location and growth of each one of them. Trace a carload of coal, because they're a coal mining country, trace a carload of coal from a West Virginia coal field to a seaport or a lake port. We're preparing our young people for the industry that they are most likely going to enter into, and in this case, possibly even a coal management position. Name and locate the principal health resorts in the United States and in West Virginia. Number 8, what country of the world is most densely settled? Which one has the sparsest population? And what's the reasons for this? Why is New England losing many of her textile industries? And finally, in geography, what influence has the Nile River had on Egypt? Something else you'll notice as we go through the test is the foreign policy as well as the geography of the world's nations that are taught. And right here on the bottom of the first page, these grades entitle you to enter into elementary school with your diploma, or from elementary school with your diploma, which admits you to any high school in West Virginia. These are 8th graders that are expected to know this. Lastly, the Nile, the Congo Basin, and why is it smaller than the Amazon, and why is this important? Moving over to the physiology and hygiene test. Yeah, they taught these kids how to bathe. Number 1, discuss the care of the teeth. Show that good teeth are essential to health. Why is the ventilation of schoolrooms necessary? Give methods, current methods of ventilation. Write a page on the point of the West Virginia standard, boy or girl. Let me repeat that. Write a page on the points of the West Virginia standard, boy or girl. They are dealing with gender issues. Next, if you're underweight, what should you do? What do we mean by inoculation and vaccination, and explain the difference fully? Next, name some important uses of the skin. Why should we bathe? What is hygiene, and why is this an important subject? Let's go over very quickly to a course which is not taught in our high schools and elementary schools any longer, at least not for the most part. Civics. What constitutes a community? Write a page. Show how good home. You gotta love this because it's so much in the news today. Show how good home life tends to decrease the need for government. They had state identity. Their curriculums were to educate their students for the likely jobs that they would enter into at that time without any federal funding, without any teaching to the test. Because if you didn't pass this test at 8th grade and go on to high school in West Virginia in 1931, where did you typically end up? That's right, the coal mine. What does the family do for education of children that the school system cannot do? What does the school do that the family cannot do? One more time. What does the family do for education of children that the school cannot do? We're dealing with parental rights here and the need for parental participation and acknowledging, and it kind of creates an environment where these school children are expected to learn from home. Next, distinguish between poverty and pauperism and discuss the most important causes of pauperism. State the difference between a direct tax and an indirect tax. We'll just sit right back here for just a second and we will ponder how many high school students or college students can explain the difference between the two. Let's take a real quick look over at English. It's going to get a little dicey here because this is a kind of a multiple choice thing, and I'm going to read through it as fast as I possibly can because I do want to get through this video as quickly as I can because I realize people are only so patient about it. But it's absolutely mandatory to understand where we are in this country today. You see how this man on the street interviews all the time? Who's the vice president? Who is your representative? Why won't the Green New Deal work? Why is socialism such folly and people cannot answer questions? How about the recent ones about immigration and comments and quotes being attributed to Donald Trump that really came out of the mouths of President Obama being asked on our university campuses? Not a single one of them, or most of them anyway, could pass this test. Check out the English test. Write a paragraph on one of the following: how we may improve our school grounds, or a picture you have studied. Underline the topic sentence. Now, fill in the blank is number 2. I guess think I shall will go. Please bring or fetch me the book. I have almost come to the end of my chapter. They're teaching them the English usage, adverbs, proverbs, dangling participles. I realize we go through all this in school today, but in very swift grammatical cadence, if you will. We're not talking about ebonics or slang or any of the other things that are used to employ by the United States Department of Education for the purposes of teaching to the test. Write a declarative sentence and an interrogative sentence, a complex sentence, and a compound sentence. Define the use in a sentence a transitive verb, participle, infinitive, and prepositional phrase. Now, here's one of my favorite ones of all. Write a letter to the Gerald Manufacturing Company of Newark, New Jersey, making application for a job as a filing clerk in their office, give general education and experience, etc. We are teaching kids in 1931 have to develop a resume, how to apply for a job, how to do it in other regions. We'll see in a little bit that they're teaching them about as well. Because again, we don't have a United States Department of Education that's given us Common Core or superimposed some kind of rewards-based curriculum on our individual school districts, where these school districts are now little political fiefdoms. This is what's going on in America today. This is what's getting us the AOCs of the world today, or anybody that's not up to speed with the reality of the world around them. Check these out from the literature area. Associate the author and literary work of O Captain, My Captain. And by the way, there's a list on the other side of all the authors. These are the books. I'll approach this question in this regard. These are the books every one of these kids had to read to graduate from 8th grade in West Virginia in 1931. O Captain, My Captain, Evangeline, The Vision of St. Launfal, The Beatitudes, Maud Muller, Charge of the Light Brigade, The Chambered Nautilus, Knee Deep in June, In Flanders Field, and Breathes There a Man with a Soul So Dead. If you could not report and give the authors of those, again, you didn't graduate. On the penmanship test, not as important, but very quickly, give at least a good reason why every boy and girl should learn to write well. Then it asks you to write a paragraph. It gives us a paragraph to write out. We won't go through that. Describe the good writing position and correct position of the paper on the desk, and then name 3 characteristics of good handwriting. Very quickly, let's go over to arithmetic and then history, my ballywick, and reason that I do the program, The Unknown America, which is why I call this the Unknown America Project. From arithmetic, a man sold a wagon for $45, which was 3/5 of his cost. What did the wagon cost him? Reduce the following fractions to the equivalent decimals. I won't read them for you. A coal bin is 12 feet long, 8 feet wide, 6 feet deep. How many tons of coal will it hold? Coal having a legal weight of 80 pounds to the bushel, or 1 1/4 cubic feet. A farm 120 rods wide and 160 rods long, is sold in two pieces. 3/8 of it at $60 an acre, the remainder at $50 an acre. Find the amount of the entire sale. Cecil raised 80 bushels of corn on 1 acre a year. By using the better methods of farming, he raised 110 bushels the next year. Find the percent yield increase. Miss Henry, she owns a house worth $7,200, assessed at 3/4 of its value. What is her tax at 15 mils on the dollar? Now, these are real world calculations that these children are expected to know. And they're expected to know, with a huge majority of them going to the coal mines of West Virginia, because they understood the need for people to be well-rounded, to be versed in politics, to understand the roles of their genders in community, their families in community, and these were taught in the school systems. And by the way, these programs were put in place by the encouragement of the federal government, which was not paying off school systems to perform at a certain level. They were preparing them for the jobs of the day. Today, in our technological sectors, we're not preparing people for anything. Don't even get me started on the trades in this country, because we're losing touch with the trades. And in this hyperinflated college degree factory world we live in, where we want to mire kids in student debt with diplomas that are for all intent worthless. And then we have politicians coming along that want to forgive the debt that by extension they saddle these kids with the degrees that aren't even applicable to the economy we live in today. And we wonder why we're having so many of the economic problems in this nation. We're wondering why the Democrats are able to get away and run on campaign platforms of, I'm going to raise your taxes because socialism's good. And why so many people are so on board with that, because they're not being taught to critically think and understand what mills on a dollar even means. Staying with math. We're going to wrap this puppy up here in just a few moments, so don't go anywhere on me. Monroe Daly bought a horse for $150, which was 80% of its true value. What was his gain percent if he sold the horse at 20% above its true value? Find the amount of $250 for 2 years, 6 months, and 18 days at 5%. You're having to calculate your loan interest. You know how we do it today in too many communities? I can afford that payment. How much down is it? Yeah, we can afford that. And if we can't, we'll just go to the local rent it here store. And we wonder why we have people that don't understand economics in this country. We wonder why President Trump gets such a just earful from the left over people. We wonder why we have a Green New Deal. We wonder why we're talking about cow flatulence and hyper rails to nowhere. And yet we don't even have the people equipped to build such systems. Lastly, a school board pays annually $45 for $6,000 of fire insurance. Find the rate of the premium. And finally, to graduate from 8th grade in West Virginia, 1931. What did the great men of the colonial period produce? Write a paper on each one of them. Number 2, tell briefly how West Virginia became a state. Number 3, draw a line connecting the proper person with the things for which he is responsible. I will not read you what the person's names are, but here's what they had to know. They had to discuss the 14 points from the Woodrow Wilson administration, the founding of the airplane, the first nonstop flight across the Atlantic, the League of Nations, which also would have been in the Wilson era, the Dawes Plan, who developed the submarine, who discovered the South Pole, the conditions of disarmament, women's suffrage, automobiles, the Panama Canal Zone, and wireless. And they're not talking Wi-Fi. They're talking tap, 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 tap. Number 4, discuss fully the reasons why early colonization was confined to the region along the Atlantic coast. Number 5, discuss the contest between the French and the English for the possession of the Mississippi Valley. Next, compare the theories of government allocated and advocated by Hamilton and Jefferson. Couldn't have done it if they weren't taught about these political philosophies of these two men in the founding of this country. You think they had constitutional debates back then? You think they were talking about the constitutionality of being gay or whatever the case may be? Because they were taught the Constitution and the political philosophies of their time. Explain the part played by agricultural machinery in the nation's development. What effect did the Homestead Law have on the West, on the East, and on all inventions? Give the plans of Lincoln, Johnson, and Congress in bringing the seceded states back into the Union. Name 4 inventions that were used extensively in the World War, remembering that there was no World War II at this period of time. This test is not unusual. It happened across the country time and time and time again. It also means that the teachers had to be up to speed on this. But today we have the Common Core model where everything is subjective, it is fluid, very oftentimes completely inaccurate. We teach to the test so that local school districts can keep their funding from the United States government that never played a role in this curriculum in 1931. Although the Department of Education has gone through many revisions and machinations, degrees of authority and import as far as what was going on in American schools, it wasn't until 1979 when it was signed into existence as a cabinet-level office for the purposes of managing the United States education system, and it has been a dismal failure in this country. Reagan believed it would be at the time. He was right. He tried to do away with it. Other people have as well. George Bush, not so fast. He actually expanded it out. But the point, ladies and gentlemen, is if we want to understand what our young people are being taught today, understand they're not being prepared for the real world that they're going to inherit at some point in time. On my program, The Michael Hart Show, I speak frequently about the participation of parents in our school system, and this is exactly the reason why. They're not learning any of this in the high school or college level. They are certainly not going to be able to take it out into the world that they are going to inherit. And in a world that we are so in opposition to the trades, so desirous of a worthless college degree, and so unwilling to adjust to the new technologies of life around us, we are coming dangerously close to a period where, in fact, socialism could actually take root in this country, as there's more and more and more desperation among our young people for some kind of benefactor because they're ill prepared for the world that they are about to be graduated into. And that's the simple reality of where we are today. In future editions of this program, I will get deeper into this stuff. I try to keep it short because what's interesting is it's affected so many generations in America. It's even difficult for people to sit here for the roughly 20, 25 minutes that we've been on the air to even sit through this video. People will see it and they'll say, that's 20 minutes long. I've got to move on. I've got other things. Give me the joke. Give me the punchline. I don't have time to sit down and learn. Back in the day, we read the greats. We read all the wonderful literature and the novels. We taught critical thinking skills in our school systems. It's time for us to do away with the United States Department of Education and turn the curriculums back to the individual states, because they and only they can know what's best for the graduating students that are going to work in the communities that they live, build those communities to be as vibrant and economically strong as they possibly can be. That not only provides a wonderful lifestyle for these students, it's also an issue of national security, economic growth, and the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in this country. And as long as we have these big, bureaucratic, cumbersome government bureaucracies that are trying to overlay every aspect of our lives and our lives of our children, we will continue to get what we get today, a condition that was not even the situation in poverty-stricken Appalachia in 1931, where a child soon to be sent off to the coal mines of West Virginia could take your student, your college student, down a notch or two, even with their Ivy League educations that have been so detrimentally impacted by the impact of the United States Department of Education. That's it for us. Do want to remind you, Heart of America, Monday through Friday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Please share this video. Next time, maybe we'll do each individual test and take a little more long form. but please share this video so people understand exactly what's going on in this country today. Thanks for tuning in, and keep an eye on Heart of America and heartofamerica.net, because we'll be back with you real soon with another edition. And also go over to the Unknown America, theunknownamerica.com, and check out a copy of the book, The Unknown America, Myths and Little Known Oddities About the Greatest Nation on Earth. Until next time, this is Michael Hart. We'll talk to you soon.